All right. So let's start nice and simple. Open up MATLAB. We're going to go up here to new. We're going to open a new graphical user interface right here. And this is going to be a little bit different than we're used to. So we're going to choose a blank GUI, but this is going to bring us into a new form of MATLAB programming, which is drag and drop, point and click kind of programming. It's good in a way, but it's also bad in a way. We're not used to this kind of programming, so it can be a little confusing, but you'll get used to it quickly, so that's good. But while we're dragging and dropping here, MATLAB is actually creating a MATLAB file with commands. It's doing this in the background for us. So anyway, we'll learn more about that here as we move on. So we start off with this blank. So I go up to new and go down to graphical user interface. What's that? Which version of it do you have? Let's see. Oh, it's underneath. All right. So then you open a blank GUI just like this, and it'll open up this window of kind of this guy here. Now it actually opens up two things. It opens a figure window like this, but it also opens up a file they're not showing you. You can see it if you want to, but they don't generally show it to you right away. And we'll see that here in a minute. So this is the figure window for this GUI, and we're going to start looking at the different things we can do with this. So one of the things we can do is we can actually change the palette. This is over here is the palette, the different things that we can put onto here. We can pull out and we can put a text button on here, for example. And I'm just going to undo that with a little Control-Z. But these are all the things that we can use, and we can adjust what we put out here using our Preferences tab. If we go to File and Preferences, then we can choose some of the things that we put over here. Let's see here. If I go over here to Guide, for example, I can click Show Names in Component Palette, which will tell me what I've got up there. So that's useful, and I can apply that. Might as well do that, and then I'll go to OK, and it's telling me now what these things are. So I've got a push button that I can put out there, or other kinds of things here. So it just makes it easier to see. So now I'm on my Select tool, which gives me this little arrow out here, which is useful. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting I'm going to put some stuff out. I'm going to use a static text tool. So I'm going to go ahead and put a static text out here. And I'm going to put an edit text out here underneath my static text. I want to make my edit text a little bit bigger so I can put in more text than is shown here. Let me see if I can grab it. So if I put it on that very corner, it gives me this little box so I can expand this out. And I can do it on either side. I can expand it out in different ways. You can expand it in the corner so you can expand it bigger that way or whatever. So you can do all kinds of expansion with it. You can do the same thing with the static text box if you find the right one here. Make it a little bit bigger in different dimensions. Right. So what is the difference? Static text is text that's just going to show up here in on my screen. It's not going to have any connection to anything. It's just going to be like a title or information. Whereas edit text is going to be text that I can actually type things into, and that will go into my program somehow for some use somewhere. So maybe an edit text will be a enter your name here kind of thing, right? So I might put in my static text box, enter your full name, and then the edit text box will be where I enter my full name. And then that information can be used. The information that you put into an edit text box can be inserted into a program somehow. But I can also put over here some axes. I can put an axes box in here so that I can display a picture, or display a graph, or display something. Some kind of display can be put into an axis. So I've got all these things done. Now, how am I going to use them in my program? How am I going to connect them to a program somehow? To do that, you need to go into the property editor for these individual things. So I right-click on the axes box, for example, and I go into the property inspector. And the property inspector is going to bring up this box which has all these different things that are related to my axes. It'll tell me how big the axes are, where they're located, but it'll also have things where I can put them into put them into my program. I can choose a lot of things. I can set colors, I can set locations of the axes. I can turn the grid off and on. I can do all kinds of things that I could do in MATLAB inside of this axis box, but I can do it all inside of this inspector. And it can get a little bit confusing. You can just try things and see what happens in here, and that's fine. But some things are not going to be so easy to tell what's going on in them. So it's important to try to read up on as much stuff as you can. Let's see. We're going to actually close this editor, this inspector rather, and let's go to the inspector of the static text box. So I'm going to right click on the static text box now. Oops, what did I just do? Let's put another static text box in. Make it a little bit bigger. So now I'm going to right click on my static text box and I'm going to go down my property inspector. And I'm going to change a few things about this. Notice that this box has a lot less stuff involved in its inspector. It's a much simpler box. It just doesn't have much in it. You're going to have some text in there. And in here you can change how that text appears and other things. So for example, we can actually have, we can change the font, we can change the font angle, the font size, the font units, the font weight, that's how thick the font is. We can change the foreground color, we can change all kinds of things, but we can also change how this interacts. The static text can interact with the program as well. you can have different text show up there depending on what part of the program you're in. So you can actually have the program decide what's going to be in there. But we can also, let's go ahead and change the background color really quick. I want to change my background color to white. Let's do that. Background color to white, I press OK and it puts the background color white. Or I could change the background color to mauve. Whatever you want to do. But you can also change the font color if you want. The foreground color that would be. So if I go to my foreground color and change that to pink, then my text becomes pink. That looks kind of nasty, so I'm going to change it to yellow. It doesn't look quite as nasty. I'm going to change my font size. Why not? Change it to 20, make it twice as big. And then we maybe change our font weight to bold. Why not? But if I actually want to change what's in my static text box, I need to go down here to the string. This tells me what is in my static text box. So I can go ahead and change that as well. And here, let's change it to, instead of static text, let's call it edit text. No, let's not do that. Let's tell it to do something. Let's tell it to, whatever they're doing in the book. I can't figure out what they want to do in the book. Oh yeah, enter the number of sides. Enter the number of sides. So I go ahead and put that in, hit enter, and it's now put it in the box. Notice my box isn't big enough for the size that I've chosen. So I come back over here and I can change the box, and I can move the box if I want to. And we're good to go. Enter the number of sides. And then I can now go on to do something else with this. Let's do the edit text box as well. Well, never mind. Let's just go on from there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and save this. Let's go up to our save, hit your save button, and it's going to open up your save as, and you're going to want to save it as something. Let's go ahead and save it as Polygon GUI, because if we're going to make this into a graphing a polygon of a certain number of sides, Polygon underscore GUI for Polygon GUI, and it'll be a .fig file, which is what it's said down here. It's showing you the format .fig, and that's fine. We'll save it, and that's great. It'll save it in our current file, and then it brings up in our editor this file of stuff that it's done. This is all the stuff that you just did just by dragging in those three things. Notice that it's a function, and that the function has a name, Polygon underscore GUI. So you've named the function just as you wanted to, and then it put in a bunch of code with some functions, and it's got some if-else statements. It's got sub-functions within the function. It's pretty complicated, pretty complex, but all you had to do is drag some things in and point and click. So that's kind of a useful little feature there. Very useful little feature. So now, if we want to make this thing do something, let's run this really quick. Let's run it and see what happens. When we run it, that's what we get. Enter the number of sides, edit text. It doesn't do anything. If we put in some numbers here, it's not going to do anything. If I put in 5 and hit enter, it's not going to know what to do, because in our file is just the code for writing the graphical user interface. There's no code for actually doing anything in MATLAB. However, we can put the code in. It's not terribly difficult as long as you're not going too crazy with it. So what we want to do is go to our Polygon GUI.m file here in the editor, and we want to find a specific thing. So we're going to go up to our Go To button up here, and we're going to go to let's see, where do we want to go? We want to go to Edit One Callback, I think. Yep. So Edit One Callback takes us. So what this does, when you go to this, it takes you to different functions within your function. And it's got the Polygon GUI, which is the original, which is the overall function. And then we have an Edit One Callback and an Edit One Create function. The Edit One Callback is going to take us to the first graphical function in the GUI, inside of this function. It takes us to the first graphical object, which is the thing that we're drawing the picture to. And then this is the code. If we go to the Edit One Callback, this is the code that is going to be run inside of our window. If we go back to our GUI here, this is the window, these axes. You have to make something happen in there. And so that's our first graphical object. Let's see if that is correct. So each one of these callbacks is a different graphical object on our GUI. Each one of these things is a graphical object. The axes, the number of sides, and the edit text. And so if we go to so yeah, anyway. So notice that there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, a bunch of go away. There we go. They've put in a bunch of green comment lines, but they haven't put in any code. It's our job to put in the code. So let's put in some code. Function Edit One Callback. Okay. So what we're going to put in here is we're going to put in a function that is going to create a polygon of however number sides are typed into the edit string object in our GUI. So what we need to do is we need to first of all get the information from that string. So here's our GUI. We want to get the information that gets typed into this box. And to do that, we're going to use a function called the get function. We've used it before. It's been a little while, I think. But we're going to go ahead and use that. And we're going to use it. Let's see if I can find it here. There we go. We're going to use it in our let's see if I've got this right. Let's go back to the go to our Edit One Callback. So this one is our first Edit One Callback. I'm going to make some space here between these two functions. Function, Edit One Callback. Here we go. Okay, so right inside of this, in all this, so this is the thing that I keep forgetting. Inside of all this comment data, they actually have some hints on how to get the stuff back. So to get this edit one callback is actually connected to, our GUI. It's connected to this edit text box. So we're going to get some information from there, and that's the first thing that we're going to get information from. And they're giving us the code, or one of the ways to retrieve that code. This is the code we want to run right here. So I can actually just copy that. I'm going to leave that in there, and I can actually just paste it right below here. I'm going to erase this other stuff here, and I'm going to put my percent sign now after the code. And this first get code right here is going to return the context of edit one as text. So it's going to put it back. It's going to go grab this information out of this thing, and we tell it that it's a string. So, but we're going to go grab it out of there. I don't think I need to capitalize my string there. I'll do it anyway. Leave it as capital string. But it's going to go grab it from this, from that type string object, that enter string object on the GUI, and then it's going to the other way that we could do it is we could return it as a double matrix, as a double number. So one or the other of these two. I'm going to go ahead and use both of them, because first of all, I'm going to get the number back. I'm going to get the name. I'm going to get the number back as a word, but I'm going to get the number back as a number as well, because I want to use this. I'm going to call this thing sides. So that will be the number of sides that I'm going to put in here. And I'm actually going to not even use this first line. I don't think I need it as text, unless I'm going to type somewhere this is a triangle or something, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to just call this thing sides, and I'm going to take the number from the typed in number on the front page, and I'm going to put that in as a number and call it sides here, and that's great. Now I want to create the code that's going to draw my polygon. So where I want to do that is in my opening function, I believe. No, actually, let's do that with sides. Once we get sides, we can do this all together. So I'm going to go ahead and we've done this function before. We've done this example before, where we draw a polygon. We create an array of theta angles that are going to go from 0 to 2 pi. And we're going to divide it by, we're going to divide it into a certain number of angles that is going to be 2 times pi divided by the number of sides that we have, depending on the number of sides on our polygon. We're going to go all the way up to 2 times pi. So there we go. So there's our array of thetas that we're going to put in there. We're going to suppress that output. And then we're going to create our sides, which are going to go from point to point. So we have to create our points. R is going to equal an array of 1s, which is going to be our points. And this array of 1s is going to be from 1 to the length of theta. So that's the number of sides that we're going to need. We're going to suppress that output as well. And then we're going to do a polar plot of theta and r. And that should create our polygon. And then we're going to put a title on this. And we're going to call it your polygon. Like that. So that's very simple code that we're going to do for this. But we need to set this up at the beginning too, so we go all the way back to the beginning of this code so that we set this up properly in our original Polygon GUI in the opening function. The opening function is down a little bit right here. Polygon GUI underscore opening function right here. So in this one, we're going to go down and right underneath, or right above actually, handles output, we're going to go ahead and put in some command lines to open this up. And this is where we set up our graph. It's going to be a polar graph, 0, 1. And it's going to create just a blank plot while we wait. We're going to also put in a title. Title. Your polygon. Just like that. And I think we'll be good. Let's save it and run it and see how it goes. Enter the number of sides. So what it's done is it's created the polar plot. That's from the original thing here. If we enter in our number of sides, hopefully it'll run it properly. Oh, it didn't quite get there. We didn't quite finish it off. So there's something wrong with our thing, but we got it kind of done there, which is great. To fix this, we need to go back to our plot functions here and see what we did wrong. We're going from 1 to the length of theta. We're plotting the polar plot of theta to r, 0 pi over sides to 2 pi. Did I do that right? I think it's right. Let me check to make sure I didn't forget anything. Length of theta, 0 to 2 pi. Oh. Theta goes from 0 to 2 pi over sides. There we go. I went from 2 pi to sides. Didn't quite start at 0. So if I go 5 here, then it finishes that. Now if I don't want to have that enter text there, I can always close this out and go back to my thing here and right click on the edit text box, go to the property inspector, go down to where it says edit text here, and I can just delete that and hit enter. Then there won't be any text to start in there, and I can just enter the text in. I can go ahead and run this again. Yes. And I can just type in 7, right? And I can type in 9. Or I can type in 100 and get a circle, right? What happens if you type in 2? What kind of polygon do you get? You just get a straight line. So maybe we want to enter in some code that says you have to have at least 2, right? That'd be good. You have to have at least 3, rather. Because if you type in 3, you get a triangle. But you could enter in that code. You could enter in an if statement that says if sides are less than 2, then display instead of displaying your polygon, display not a polygon, right? Or you could have it. You could have the title be not a polygon. But if it's more than 2, then you can go for the code. In fact, let's do that really quick. It won't take much. Go back to our thing, our code here, and we can start off with instead of with theta, we have an if then statement or an if statement. So if and if else statement. If sides greater than or less than 2, sides less than 2, then the thing that we'll do is we'll say title not a polygon. Right? Then we do an else we run this one. It is a polygon, and then we need to put an end at the end, right? And then we run it. So enter number of sides, I put 2, hit enter. It didn't give me a title there because I hadn't plotted yet. So maybe I need to go back, close this out and go back. So if sides, then I'll do a polar 1, 0, and then run it. Enter the number of sides. If I enter 2, still won't do it. Did I do it wrong? 0, 1, or 1, 0? 0, 1. It's not a good plot. Go back here. Try this again. 0, 1, 0, 1. Save, run. Enter number of sides, 2. Still won't do it for me. That's okay. If side's less than 2, then I just don't run anything else. Let's just run this. So if sides are 2, it's still doing the other one. It's still doing the, let's see. I've set sides equal to a number, string to double, get HO object with sides less than 2. Oh, it needs to be of sides less than 3, because 2 is not less than 2. It needs to be less than 3. There we go. Okay, run that. So let's do 2. Okay, so it doesn't want to do that. I doesn't want to do that. Oh, because it spelled it wrong. It's polar. There we go. Try to run that. So I put 2. Then it says not a polygon. How about that? So it says not a polygon at the top. But if I erase and put in 3, then it does triangle. If I erase and put in 6, it does everything else just normal. If I put in sides -1, it returns not a polygon. If I put in sides 0, it returns not a polygon. What is the advantage of this? The advantage of this is that you have created now a non-ending program. A program that has a loop in it, obviously, right? There's obviously a loop. It'll keep running until I tell it to turn off. But you didn't have to write any of the code. All you had to do is put in some buttons and tell the buttons what to do, right? And tell you where to grab the information. So it's a little bit different kind of programming that kind of requires a new paradigm. And you have to learn the ins and outs of manipulating the information from and to these different buttons, these different graphical objects. But in the end, it saves you a ton of time. So the trick is trying to figure out how to manipulate this information. So let's do a couple other examples and learn how to move around some more information. So let's do a new one. Let's close this one out and let's start a new one. So we'll open up a new graphical user interface, blank GUI, and let's start again. Let's put in an axis. What we're going to do this time is we're going to create a graphical user interface where we're going to fire an object, a cannon, and we're going to map out its trajectory, the trajectory of the cannon based on the angle of the cannon and the velocity of the cannon that is going to be input by the user. We're also going to have a button that says fire. So we're going to start off with an axis so that we can graph out the trajectory of the cannonball. So we'll put in an axis, but we're also going to put in an edit text box right about here, and another edit text box just below it, right about here, for the angle in degrees and the initial velocity. But we're going to actually group these as well. So let's move these down a little bit. We're going to group these together, and we're going to label them. We're going to label them with some static text boxes over to the left. So static text box here, Another static text box here. And then we'll put in a panel. Where's the panel? Here's a panel. So this panel will group these two text boxes together and give them both kind of a title together. So we can have them grouped. And I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to send it to the back so that these text boxes are now on top of that panel. See that? And then over to the right I'm going to put my big fire button, and I'm going to put it as a what's my fire button going to be? A push button. Where's my push buttons? Do I have a push button on here? Push button right here. Put my push button. Now they just have it as a square button. I don't want a square button. Let's look at that one's property inspector first. So background color, of course, we want red because it's a fire button. We press OK there. And let's see, being deleted automatic, callback, enable, on, Helvetica points. Foreground color, since it's a fire button, let's make it bright green so it really sticks out on the red. And let's take a look at position, string style, push button style. Nope. I don't want it to be square, I want it to be round. I wonder if I can get it to be round. I think I can. Let's change the text on it. Let's see, the text, let's make it font weight bold, font size 25, 30, 40 or something like that. And let's change the actual what it says in it, the string, to fire. All right. Make it big enough so we can see it. Come on, there we go. All right, so I got a big firing button. I've got my panel over here. I've got my axes up here. Let's change the size of the axes just a little bit so it will make a little more sense to us. All right, we're looking good, looking good. So this is our thing so far. Let's take a look at the panels inspector here. I don't want it to be called panel. I want it to be called launch condition, launch control, something like that. Call it launch control. And we want that to be pretty visible, so we'll change the size of the font to 15 maybe, and we'll maybe boldify it. Put it to bold. Launch control, okay, that's good. Now let's go over here to static text. The first static text, we'll make it our, we'll make that our angle in degrees, launch angle. So we'll come back here to our, every time I click on a different thing, it just brings up the correct inspector. So this one will be our, the static text will be launch angle. And hit return there. Go down to our static text for the other one. That will be the initial velocity, launch speed maybe. So we'll change that to launch speed. Enter that in there. Now on this one I'm going to put, on my edit text box, I'm going to put degrees so that they know that it's in degrees. Edit text in degrees. And this one will be miles per hour, or probably meters per second actually. Meters per second. Enter on that. So now I've got this all set up. I also want to label my axes, but I will do that in I'll give that a title. When I do it, we'll call it the trajectory. How come I can't find it? There it is. We'll title it trajectory within my code. All right, so it looks like we're in a pretty good place. Now the first thing I got to do is I have to be able to take information let's see here. Oh, the other thing that I got to do is I need to go into my launch angle here. Ah, yes. Sorry, I'm trying to remember how this is done. The first time we did this, we got the information using the get function. So we grabbed something from our first box, which was the number of sides for our polygon. There's another way to do this, and it's using something called handles. Each one of these things creates an automatic variable, kind of a variable thing, and we call it a handle. And each object has its own handles. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab it this way. Instead of getting it using the get function, we're going to name this thing. So anything that gets put in here is going to be assigned to a handle that has a name. And then we're going to put it into a function that way. So the way to do that is to click on this guy, and we're going to go to its inspector, and in the inspector we have this thing called a tag. So right now the tag is called edit1. Under edit1 we're going to change that edit1 to launch _angle. So now it's going to automatically change it or save it to a handle that we call launch angle, launch _angle. Then we hit enter, we hit return on that. And now it's automatically going to tag that, whatever that number that gets put in there, it's going to tag it with this handle called launch _angle. And we can do the same thing with this one, which we'll change to go ahead and change that one. I think they changed that one to got to be initial velocity or something. Yeah, launch velocity. So launch _velocity on the other one. We go down here to tag. Edit 2, we change to launch _velocity. Now the other thing that we have to do is we have to go into the code. So once we hit enter on that, we have to go into the code and put in some code as well. So we need to go back to our thing and save it. So we go back to here and we can run and save. Save that to actually cancel. I'm going to underscore, I'm going to save. In my code, I'm going to call this, we'll call this rocket launch or something. Rocket launch underscore GUI. So I know that it's a GUI file. Save that, and then it opens up this GUI file. Now I need to go into my GUI file here, and I need to change a couple of things. And the way to change these handles is to go into the launch angle callback function. So we're going to go to launch angle callback right here. Launch angle callback. So there's my launch angle callback, and I'm going to, inside this function, I'm going to use a new set of code, not this hint one that they gave us, but this one is going to be, we're going to call the hand, so we're going to assign the handles. So we use handles dot theta. So that's going to be, we're going to assign our handles using that, and that's going to be equal to, we're going to use the string to double again rather, just like we did before. But inside of here, we're going to get our, we're going to get an H, we're going to call it H object, because that's going to grab that object that is the handle, and then we're going to save it as a string. So it's the same thing we did before, except we're assigning it to a handle that can be used anywhere. So this can be used anywhere in the program. And then we're going to do one more thing. We're going to put this into our handles. Just like that. Suppress those both. I'm missing something here. Missing a, there we go. So that is the code we're going to use. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this code because I have to do it again with my velocity, my launch velocity callback. Go to my launch velocity callback function. I'm going to paste in the same thing, except instead of handles dot theta, I'm going to call this one handles dot velocities, VL rather. So these ones, I'm just assigning these handles so that these things can be used everywhere. So now I go back to my original code. I'm going to go to my rocket launch GUI opening function right here. Rocket launch GUI opening function, and no, I'm going to go to my rocket launch, just my rocket launch GUI. Let's see. Nope. Let's see. Actually, this one is going to, we have to put the code where the action is going to take place. And in this case, it goes where the push button is pushed. So we have to put this in the push button function. So let's find that. Push button right here. So here's my push button callback. My push button callback is at the very end, so that's where my code needs to go for this. And the code, we're going to create some code we're going to create a graph of time versus distance. And so we start off with a time. We're going to say time is going to equal, we'll go from 0 to 100 seconds in steps of 0.001. So 0.001 to 100. So we're going to create that array, the time array, and then we'll create a height array, which tells us how high it's going to be, And you don't need to know where this comes from. It's some mathematics. But let's see here. So the mathematics involve multiplying time, the time of thing that we just created. We'll multiply that times the velocity, the handles underscore, or dot rather, velocity. So that's the velocity that it gets inputted. But we want it multiplied by the cosine of that velocity. So we multiply times the cosine. And we use a special cosine function. It's cosine d. And then we do handles of the theta, dot theta. And that's the first one. The second, that gives us the height of the object. And then the distance of the object is going to be, what do they use that? They use v for downrange, I guess. But they're going to use time. It's going to be essentially the same thing. I'm going to just copy this. It's going to be everything except sine. Copy, paste it, change this to a sine d. Right? But it's instead of, it's going to be handles times velocity sine d handles dot theta. But then we also have to subtract off the drag coefficient because it's going to get some drag in there. So subtract off 1/2. No, that's actually not the drag coefficient, it's the acceleration coefficient. So it's going to be 1/2 times 9.8 times time dot squared. So you don't need to understand the physics of these equations, but these are calculating how far it's going downrange and how far it's going up. And then these two functions that we've done just now are going to give us some things that are positive and some things that are negative. We only want the positive. So if it ever goes negative, if it goes below the ground at the end of its thing, we're going to ignore it. So we're going to say that position is going to equal, or positive is going to equal, find everything in here in the H. We're going to find everything in H that is greater than 0. Or so I'll find everything in V that's greater than 0, sorry. V that's greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to do that. And that's going to be our positive. And then our horizontal is going to equal H of the positives. So we're going to only find the positive things in H here. And then our vertical is only going to be the stuff from V equals V where it's positive. So we're just taking the positive stuff out of these two arrays, or these two matrices, essentially. And then we're going to create a comet, remember, if you remember back to our stuff where we did with plotting, a comet plot is a plot that plots one point at a time, so it's kind of an animation. We're going to apply a comet plot of our horizontal versus our vertical, just like that. And so we should be able to run this at this point. And we want to choose our launch angle, whatever it is, 32 degrees, meters per second, let's say 67, and fire it. And so there it is. And that turned out pretty cool, I think. And we should be able to do multiple ones. Let's see if it'll hold it on. I don't think it will. So if we do 45 degrees at a meters per second of 23, it turns. So in this one, what it did is it erased the last one and fired the next one. So if we do a launch speed of 46, for example, and fire it, it'll give us a completely new graph. Now, if we go back in, we can actually tell it to hold this thing. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to the opening function and start off with a graph that is blank and is quite large, but we'll tell it to keep it open. So I'm going to go to my opening function, and I'm going to initialize my graph in my opening function here. So here's my opening function, and I've already put in some. There's already some stuff in my opening function, and I can go ahead and enter in a plot here as well. So go ahead and put in here. I'll put in a plot. And I'm going to start off with this plot a certain size, and they've just got it in here, 275, comma 0. We're going to go ahead and start with some specific settings for markers in there. We're also going to put in a marker size, so the size of the marker size. Marker size will be 10, and we'll do a marker face as well. And if you don't remember these things, this is just stuff that you can set in your graphs to make them custom. Marker face color. So it's nothing to really worry about if you don't remember it. I'm going to do R for red, and then we're going to go ahead and put in some text. 275, comma 50, comma tar So we're going to put in. Essentially what we're doing with this text is we're putting in a text box at a certain point where we're going to put a target. So a target that we're trying to hit, right? So it's going to say target right here, and that's where we're going to try to hit. Then we're going to label, we're going to put in our axis, specific axis from 0 to 100, or 0 to 1000 rather, 0, comma 1000, and then 0 to 500, 0, 500. So that's just labeling our axes with some numbers. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to hold this thing on. So we're going to make sure that this stays on all the time. And let's run this and see what happens. So here's our target range. This little red marker is our target. That's the thing we were doing with the marker and the marker face and all that. We were making this little red marker on the target, and we're calling it the target, and then we're going to try to hit it, right? But this one allows us to leave it on. So if we do a 30-degree launch at 30 to 30 meters per second, for example, let's see where that lands. And we fire it, and you can see that we fall really short. So if we do 30 degrees at 300, that one takes way off. So we need to be somewhere between those two. So let's try 100 and fire it, right? But notice that it's keeping each one of these fires on the board. So it has to wait till they finish. So 100 is still too many, so let's do 50 and see where it takes us. 50 gets us a lot closer. Let's try 60. Oh, too much, right? 55. We hit our target, right? But maybe somebody tells us that we need to hit the target but we need to go over the top of a mountain. So we change this angle to 60 degrees, and it turns out we'll be able to hit it again. Right? So, anyway. So that is using this stuff to our advantage. Now we're going to come back and we're making an even better one. We're going to make an even better one of these things. We're going to use a slider to place our target, so we can change the target to all kinds of different places. And then we'll make some more advanced GUIs. I've got to go get something to drink because I'm parched. But we'll come back and we'll do a bigger and better GUI program when I come back. Let's say we take let's take a little bit longer break, 10 or 15 minutes. I need to go find something to do.
Frick, dude. I keep missing this class. Like coming super late or just missing this class. And I don't even try to do it on purpose. I just do it. Oh, man. Let's go. The thing is, like, I go to work at 4, right? And I finish class like around 4 for 1. Except for this day, like I have class up until 3. But, like, the thing is, like, okay, so my computer's strict crap, so I use it. So I have to set one up, like, when you max up in the library. Like, get out of like 10 or 11. The library closes at 11. Yeah. That's why I'm like, just no, you know? Yeah. Anyways, what's been going on? Are you caught up and everything? Chapter 7, 8, and 9. You did 7, 8, and 9? Well, like the assignments. Are you caught up in that? Okay, you didn't do the last one? Week 9? We did 17. You did 7 and 8, though. Let's see what it shows there. You think you can make a game? You think you can program to make a game? Right now? Yeah. Yesterday while I was in this class for physics, I was like literally trying to get into this class. Oh man. And I have class at 2. Oh my god, I'm just leaving hanging. What? Leaving me hanging here? What happened to that? You decided, hey, it's been like 3 or 4 weeks since I had this put up. Kind of haven't seen him since then. He just said he was going to skip that day. And like never ended up coming back. Deep job. He probably did, to be honest. But I honestly didn't know because he was honestly caught up, like kind of like where you're at. And I'm the only one pretty much not caught up with anything. But he said that, oh, dude, I don't feel like coming to class today. I was like, alright, yeah, missing one day, something like that. And then he ended up like, I just see you now, and never see him. So much for skipping one day, bro. my goods name is the same. So I don't know if you guys are on the
We're in chapter
chapter what?
15.
No. Chapter 15. So we're on week 15 assignment.
In the assignments, it's just this is chapter 15. So it goes from chapter 1.
What did you go to?
Chapter
Chapter 15. Oh, that's the end?
and then we
So chapter 15 is the first that goes to week 15 assignment and then project.
well, it's just called
And dude, I'm over here looking at chapter 6 and 7. Okay, what's it called though? Where you guys are on the chapters.
I don't read from his book, chapter.
Huh?
I don't have my book.
You don't have your book? How come you stopped using it?
Well, I didn't read this one.
No.
I have it.
Just like I see with crap. Dang, dude, I might have been looking at a whole different chapter while he talks about creating graphical user interfaces.
Okay. Moving on. Our next GUI. We're actually going to keep adding on to this one. So we're going to add a target positioning slider switch on here. I need to make my interface a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to drag it down a little bit, make a little bit of room here. I'm going to take this launch control, I'm going to move it down a little bit. Actually, I think that if I right click on this, or shift click maybe, yeah, I can select multiple things like this. So I can move them all at once, and I think I can even, no, I can't do that. But anyway, I can shift and click on different objects, and I can move them all at once. Oop, I didn't quite get all of them. Let me get this last one. There it is. Now I can move them all at once, all down together. They're kind of moving funky right now, but hopefully they'll all kind of come back together. Maybe not. What happened? That didn't work out all that well, but don't want to do it too quickly apparently. Okay, so that's good enough. So move my button down here a little bit too. Now I'm going to put in a slider button here, right here. I don't want it to be that direction, so I want to, oops, slider button right here. I want to make it, what's going on? My computer's freaking out here. Delete slider button. Now I believe that I can rotate it. How do I rotate it though? Let's just make it bigger first of all. There we go. If I just make it wider than it is tall, it will become a nice little slider button. Where did it go? I lost my slider button. I don't know where it is. Let's try it again. Slider button right here. There we go. Now I got it to work. Now I want to make this slider button pretty much the size of my axes here. Because the idea is I'm going to use this slider button to place my target at different places along the chart here. So put it in there. And I want to go to the inspector for the slider button, so I'm going to right click on it and bring up the property inspector. And one of the things I want to do is I want to do a maximum minimum on it. So let's go to, let's see, where is it? Maximum minimum right here. They have a maximum 1, minimum 0. I'm going to change my maximum to 1,000 because remember on our chart we made our maximum on the chart 1,000. And on my minimum I'm going to make 0 still, that's fine. And then the value down below here, let's make it, put it in square brackets, and we'll put, just like we did with our chart below, we have 275, comma 0 for values. And there we go. So, it's good for the inspector. And let's go to our code and let's add some stuff into our code. So one of the things that we learned last time was with the handles. So we can actually get a location number from our, let's see, if we go back to our, we have a bunch of places where we've inserted a bunch of code. Right here is one of them, if I can find it. Right here is one of them. And, no, that's not the one I want. I want to go to the, let's go to the find, go to opening function. Is us right there, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So here is where we actually, this right here, this plot 275.0 S marker size, marker face color. This is where we plotted our target right here. So we could even mark that the target plot right there. And then we've labeled it with this text here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the information from the slider and put it in here and mark this. So we'll start off with, grabbing that information. So we're going to use handles again. And actually, yeah, we're just going to get the value from that slider. Handles dot, we'll call it location. That'll be our handle that we're going to use for that particular piece of data. We're going to use the get function again, and we're going to use the handle object. So handle object function, comma, and we're just going to grab the value from there. Now let's check to see if our, we need to check to see if our Where did it go? Here we go. If our inspector for this has it labeled as value, so let's check to see that really quick. Value, yeah, so that's what it's going to pull off, the number between, we're starting off at 0,275, and then it will change, I suppose. So let's go back and to our code. Where did it go? Go to yep, right here. Okay. So and before we do this, let's turn off the hold. So we're starting here, we grab our value, and let's turn off the hold so that we're not plotting anything right away. So that every time we get a new value, we can create a new graph with a new marker on it. And then we'll go on and we'll plot, instead of plotting at 275.0, we're going to plot at our handles location. So our location of the slider. So we get that from handles.location. It's the location of our slider. And then comma 0, we'll put it in the same, we'll give it the same shape and the same color, red. And we're going to have, our axis will be the same. The text we can put here, we can put it the same spot as well. We need to put it at handles.location and 50. We'll call that target. And we'll title it, let's title our axis this time as well. Title, we'll call it trajectory. We didn't do that last time. Trajectory, we'll close that off. So we've got that. We didn't label our axes either. Let's label our axes, why not? X label. Let's label axes. This will be our horizontal distance. Horizontal distance. And let's do our y-axis. Copy, paste. Y label, call it vertical distance. So we're adding some things on here. Handles location. That's fine. Target. We got that. So after we've done all this and we're ready to plot, let's go ahead and put our hold back on, because now after we've plotted our target and everything in our graph, we can put the hold back on and we can start graphing things again. Then let's see. We can also put in a reset button if we wanted to. Not really sure I want to at the moment. Let's run this and see how it goes. Oh, what happened here? Line 60, apparently I did something goofy. Handles.location equals, that should be right. Where? Right here? It's supposed to be there. That's the handle object. Let's see. What did we just do? Yeah, handles.location, get object. object handles. Yeah. That's fine. Hold off. Line 60. Mm-hmm. Oops. Navigate to the slider command. Oh, I think I see what I did wrong. This is in the wrong spot. This is, I put this under opening function. This needs to be under my I need to put this under the let's see, the direct launch angle. I need to find my slider function. Where's my slider function? Push button. I think I forgot to save. There it is. There's my slider. Put that under there and run it. Now if I slide this around, it should move the marker, but it didn't apparently. So I've got something wrong there. But my slider's there anyway. Go back to here. Slider 3. How do I, more than one slider? Oh, it still has those sliders in my picture, but I don't know where they are. Those ones that I first put in, that's the problem. So I don't know which one is there, which one is the one I need to put it under. I think it's under this one. Yeah, crap. I messed it up. I'm going to have to start over. That's a real pain in the butt. Well, I can tell you what I did wrong. I can see what I did wrong by looking at it. Remember when I was putting in these sliders and then I lost them somehow? Somehow, I don't know what happened, but I may have put them behind something, or I don't know what. There's some sliders that are hidden on my thing, and I got impatient. But since I put in multiple sliders without erasing them, I thought I had erased them. It actually has multiple sliders in the file. So if I go back to my file here, and I do the go to, you can see there's slider 1, slider 2, slider 3. There's all these sliders in here. I'm not sure which one is which. And so I've got a problem there, which is too bad. But anyway, I'm not going to go through all the details of that. But you can use both the get function and the handles functions to manipulate data. But you have to make sure that when you're doing GUI functions, when you're doing any of this graphical user interface stuff, you have to write the function, you have to write the programming has to go with the function that's on the screen. So if when you move the slider, it's supposed to do something, the stuff it's supposed to do has to be with that function. It has to be with the slider callback function. And then if you're calling, and you use the handles if you're going to pass data around between all of these things. Again, it's a completely different paradigm for programming than we're used to. But in the end, it does save you a ton of time because you don't have to type all this stuff in. You don't have to create all these functions yourself. It just creates them all for you. You just drag and drop. At the very end here, they show us some things that we can do with GUI templates, built-in GUI templates, and UI controls. And let's take a look at some of these. We go to Home, we go to New, Graphical User Interface. You can do GUI with UI controls and GUI with axes and menu. What these are is these are built-in graphical user interface templates that you can change if you need to, but they already have code in them. They're not a blank GUI, in other words. So they're just some standard ones that are often used, so that you can just plug in, you can just replace some of the code and have a GUI within 5 minutes. And that's all they're dealing with these ones. Now, as far as the homework goes, what I want you to do for the homework in the book, I want you to finish the last 2 advanced rocket GUIs. I took you all the way to the point where we're starting to use the slider, but the other things that they do is they add an explosion when you hit it. They also add a you win thing. They add in a what else? They add in a reset button so you can clear the screen without stopping the GUI. I want you to complete that GUI and make your own little rocket firing game. In addition to the things that they do with their explosion and their reset button, I want you to think of at least 2 more things that you can add into that graphical user interface. And I will write this up in Blackboard so that it's up there. But I want you to just go through and build your own rocket-fired GUI, and I want you to customize it. Customize it as much as you can, but I want you to at least complete what they've done and add 2 more things. But you can change colors, you can change shapes of things, you can do whatever you want to it. But I want you to make your very first video game here, because this is the precursor to our final project. Next week we will start the final project, and of course we'll have a week to finish it until the next week, which will be another type of game. I'm not sure exactly what, but it will involve more of the things like building loops and other things like that. So this is a very simple game. We'll go to a little more complex game for the final project, and that is your assignment for the week. Any questions about that? No? Okay. So, Matt, do you have a book yet, Matt? You have an old book. You have a very old book. It's not going to be in that book. No, it's not in that book. This chapter, because the old version of MATLAB, which that book is teaching, doesn't even have this stuff in it.
I kind of lost you guys at chapter 7.
You should have had everything up through up until we did chapter 14. Everything should have been in your book.
Well, like your chapter 14, well, like, it had like just points in different chapters.
Yeah, and but you should have had everything. You should have had stuff on for loops and while loops and if else and
It was like you're in chapter 14, I find out.
yeah. So, but I can make you.
I was just gonna see if I could come in like after lunch.
Yeah. Yeah, you can work on it in here and use this book if you want, or if you want, I can make a copy of it too. Just, you want to just come in here and do it, or do you want to make a copy?
Coming in here would be awesome.
Okay, so chapter 15. That's what it's there. So anyway, you guys can go ahead and get started now, working on that. So if you have any questions, you can ask me, because I'll be here until 3 o'clock.
Brother, I'm bad on this today. I just ended up sleeping
Jennifer will be here tomorrow at 4:30 to do the lab. So if you want to come in there.
through it. 4:30 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
What's that?
I gotta work at 4.
Okay.
No, I'll probably be in here way before. I'll probably be in here at 1 till then. Working on MATLAB and
Okay. I may not be here at 1 o'clock tomorrow. I probably will not be here at 1 o'clock tomorrow. So, but we do have MATLAB on the computers in the library.
Could I have copies then? Because
Yeah.